The metal shutters rattled up, scattering the sharp grey of dawn across the factory floor. I blinked against the sting in my eyes, part fatigue, part the aftertaste of angry tears. My shift was over, but my feet wouldn't move. Hands blackened by grease, eyes aching from hours beneath harsh overhead lights, I stood among the rows of half-built circuit boards, hunched figures shuffling past me out into the humidity of a Tokyo morning. Taka, my supervisor's bark snipped at the humid air. He clapped me on the shoulder, a gesture that had never brought comfort but always felt more like a shove. Aren't you done? Go home. Sleep a little or you'll start soldering your own fingers. I forced a smile, wiped my hands on my battered jeans and nodded silently. My co-workers, men and women in identical grey overalls, streamed past, some batting sleep from their eyes, some laughing in brittle little huddles near the lockers. I lingered, watching the machines power down, the floor emptying of human ambition until only steel and silence remained. Home was a 30-minute walk. I took it slow, letting the thick summer air cool my skin. Narrow alleys, blue-tinged with morning, still smelled of fry oil and old rain. I knew these streets, every vending machine, every faded poster peering out from brickwork, every crack in the concrete. My neighborhood, Nishikarai Adachiku. Not fancy, not gentle either, a place where you earned what you could and dreams were something tourists or fools talked about. My mother was waiting by the entryway, hair bundled back with a faded towel, apron already dusted with flour. She didn't bother with pleasantries. You'll be late for cleaning. Morning, Mama. I slid out of my shoes, came in trying not to track factory dust over her floors. She didn't answer. The radio played a distant, sentimental enka tune as she wiped her hands and poured me rice and nat. Breakfast, if you could call it that. She watched me eat, her lips a hard line. She always looked older after a night baking for the neighborhood shop, eyes dull with worry she'd never voice aloud. Any news from the university? She asked. No, a lie, there was news, but not the kind she wanted. Mori-form rejections, concise, polite, merciless. Thank you, Takashi Mano, we regret to inform you. She snorted, they don't want you, too many like you, dreamers, heads full of nonsense. Work is work, you have a job. It pays better than nothing. A part of me wanted to fight back, but I was so used to this, the heat of anger always dulled by the time the words came. It's not nonsense. You're not rich, not a genius. Go take a nap so you don't get sick. I scraped my bowl, careful not to clatter, went to my room, a closet really, where shelves buckled under the weight of textbooks, snapped pencils, sheets of equations dog-eared and marked with circles and corrections. Nearly every free hour, every scrap of money I had went here. Second-hand books, broken circuit boards, used laptops scavenged from Akihabara side shops. Schematics and algorithms spun out across the notebook pages, wild with desperation. Biotech and AI, my passion, my insanity. Most nights the ceiling blurred above me, my eyes burning with the ghosts of code and neurons. The house was quiet but for the scrape of my father's slippers as he shuffled in, lighting his first cigarette. He'd been a welder before his back gave out. Now he watched TV in silence, eyes watery with disappointment, muttering about how men did what they must, not what they liked. My younger sister left her room just long enough to sneer at me, still pretending you're some kind of genius. I said nothing, let the anger flash and wash away. She was top of her class, bound for a sensible job she'd never understand. When I slipped out to the convenience store later, a cluster of old men hunched at the counter spotted me. There he is, the future scientist, the irony thick and brittle. I heard it every time I walked past, mockery smothered under laughter. My project, a machine learning system to detect rare diseases from voice and movement, sounded impossible to people whose ambitions ended at a steady paycheck. My only real friend Yuji worked at a used electronics stall. He was the rare soul who'd listen sometimes. He greeted me with a grin. You look like hell. Long night, I muttered. Any new boards come in? He nodded, pulling out a battered case. Whatever you're building, man, you'd better finish before it finishes you. You don't think it's stupid? He hesitated, a rare thing, then shrugged. I don't get it, Taka. But you've always been like this, just don't spend your last yen on wires and hope. It was meant kindly, still it burned. I took the board home, hands shaking. That was how my life went for months, then years, rejections upon rejections, nights spent hunched over code that never quite ran right, hardware that sparked and died. Disdain in my mother's eyes, boredom in my father's, the mocking, omnipresent skepticism of the neighborhood who saw me as the punchline to a bad joke. By my 27th birthday the anger simmered, not hot but enduring like the ache in an old scar. Still somewhere in the pit of me there was a peace, serenity chipped out of sheer stubbornness, steel beneath all the derision. There was only the work and the certainty I would not become what they expected. It took another 3 years. My break came when a friend, someone I'd met at a ramen place of all things, said he knew a professor at a startup venture in Odaiba. Their team was small, desperate for talent and ideas. They gave me a week. My demo, scrapped together from garbage parts and code I'd rewritten 100 times, ran badly during the trial, but ran. My voice analysis detected the microtremors in speech that correlated with early neurological disease. They hired me on the spot. I felt something shatter, something old and hard and bitter, while I stood in their marble lobby clutching the offer letter. Months turned into years. I stayed up late not from desperation but from drive as our early proof of concept drew first media, then medical attention. It was strange how quickly my life divided. That world of the sleepless factory and mocking neighbors, and this, white-walled labs in Shibuya, bright screens and the hum of global connection, colleagues who never once laughed at a wild dream. We filed patents, I gave lectures. One afternoon, my supervisor, we called her Iki-san, pressed a trembling hand to her mouth after a video call. "We've got funding from Boston," she whispered. "We can build the real thing. Clinical trials, hospital partnerships." She told me to call my parents. I'd not seen them in a year. My voice faltered as I tried to explain. My mother's only answer was a long silence, then, "Your father's busy. And your sister is at work." I hung up, hand shaking. Sometime after our software was named one of Nikkei's Innovations of the Year, the mayor of Adachiku asked me to be a guest at the ward's annual festival. My first instinct was to decline. There was nothing for me in Nishirai. Then I thought of those mornings in the factory, the taste of bitterness and serenity warring on my tongue. I needed to set foot there again now that I was someone else, or maybe more myself than ever. On a hot June afternoon, I stepped off the train, city pressed hard around me. My old block was exactly the same as I'd left it, ramen shops stubbornly open, bicycles hugging chain-link fences, the whine of cicadas as endless as time. The community center, newly painted, shimmered in the sunlight. Inside, my family had gathered, my parents, looking older but smaller than I remembered, my sister in a smart navy suit, and the neighbors. The old men from the corner store, leaning in their seats, eyeing me warily, as if I was some minor celebrity who might still spill coffee on their shoes. A volunteer led me to the front. There was a small screen, a microphone, a table with cups of green tea. The mayor introduced me in gentle, kindly phrases. "Local sun makes good, humble beginnings." I was asked to speak about my work. For a second, I hesitated. My hands found the old rhythm, fist clenching, breath shaky. Before I pressed the calm down, felt my voice anchor itself. "I was told for a long time that my dream was ridiculous," I said, watching my mother's eyes flick away. "That someone from here, someone who worked in a factory, who fixed broken machines in a tiny room, could never build something important." A few faces looked down. Others frowned, guilty or still skeptical. I didn't know, but dreams like mine, they aren't magic. They're just stubbornness and work you do after everyone else gives up. I gestured at the laptop they'd set up for me. "With a phone or a PC, my team's software can detect diseases so early you don't even feel sick. One day it will save lives. Maybe one day someone you love." I linked the laptop to a microphones. My old neighbor, a grandmother I'd known since childhood and who had long called me foolish Takashi, was persuaded to demo. She read a sentence. The program generated a report, benign and straightforward, but the AI's analysis revealed subtle vocal tremors, the kind you wouldn't notice but that the computer did. She blinked at the screen, stunned. "Is this real?" I nodded. The room murmured. Another neighbor tried. This time the readout flagged a warning, borderline but worthy of a checkup. The nurses at the event, partners from the hospital now using our systems, explained what it meant, voicing their approval. The old men who'd mocked me years before, faces wrinkled by sun and time, grew quiet. Their eyes flicked from my mother to the screen, then to me. No jeering, no laughter, just wary awe. My mother sank in her chair, lips pressed tight. My father said nothing, but his gaze lingered as though recalibrating his sense of what his son was. After the formalities, I stepped off the stage. The first to speak was my sister, arms folded across her chest, gaze blank. "I guess you did it," she said in her matter-of-fact way. There was, if I strained, something like pride in her voice. My father moved closer, face pinched by thoughts I couldn't read. He reached out, awkward, fierce, and clapped my shoulder, the same old gesture but without the heaviness. "You built something real, Taka, doesn't matter what I thought." It's more than I ever did. My mother remained silent, hands clenched in her lap. After a time, she spoke, clearing her throat. Your sister wants to know if your company will hire interns. She studies computers, you know. I laughed, a sound I'd forgotten was possible, sharp and wild and free. We're always hiring, but it's hard work. A pause, then the barest hint of a smile broke on her face. Work is work, she replied almost tenderly. The old men from the counter, sheepish, drifted over. One shuffled his feet. Tarkar-san, you know we didn't believe you, but maybe we were wrong. I looked at them, not with contempt but patience. It's okay, I said, not everyone can see the future. They nodded, embarrassed, then one asked, could I try the system? For my wife, she coughs every morning. I obliged. The demonstration became a small gathering, the neighbors clustered, anxious and excited. I guided them through the process, fielding questions. Their jeers turned to curiosity, their skepticism to genuine concern. I felt lighter than I had in years, the anger fading, replaced by the calm that comes when you finally prove the world wrong, not just out of spite, but out of compassion. As the crowd thinned, I stepped outside into the heat, the festival in full swing, the smells of yakisoba and the laughter of children threading through the air. Yuji found me by the food stalls, grinning, his hair speckled with grey. You really did it, Tarkar, he slapped my back. Famous in your own neighborhood, who would have guessed? I could have used you at our company, I said, only half joking. He shrugged. Nah, I like fixing old things. Besides, someone's got to run the stall, otherwise who'll sell you your next disaster of a motherboard? We stood quietly, I breathed in the scent of frying noodles, dust and coming rain, a smell I'd missed. Across the square, my family lingered near their friends, caught up in this new story where their son was a success, not an embarrassment. On my way home, I wandered the narrow side streets, pausing by the shuttered factory where it all began. The windows were covered now, new owners renovating the old structure. I pressed my palm flat against the cool metal. I remembered the sting of failure, that long walk home, the lull between anger and serenity that kept me moving, one breath at a time. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the urge to escape. I thought of those who mocked me, of the smiles tinged with shame now that they'd seen what my dream had become, and I pitied them gently. I crossed the bridge over the canal, the city humming around me, neon and brick and sky. The anger that once hollowed me out now felt small. What remained was something harder, truer, a quiet sense of having returned, not in triumph but in peace. As the last light slipped through Nishikarai, I turned toward home, let my shoulders loosen, and felt the serenity expand inside me. I was no one's failure anymore. Just the proof that sometimes dreams are loud enough to make the world listen.